baby, driving me out of my...
Setting up front of house can be fun, but also tedious. Let's be mindful of each step so we make sure to do it all correctly. Here we have Berklee's awesome sound system, or what we like to call the bass system. Let's jump into how we connect the system at front of house and monitors. We will begin with the subsnake being placed on the stage in the area of our input source or microphones. This will then be run to the stage box and plugged into the inputs 1 through 8, with the numbers corresponding 1 to 1, 2 to 2, etc. Once we have our subsnake completely connected to the stage box, we will use our AES-50A port located on the back of the stage box to connect our Cat6 cable. One side will be input to the AES-50A port on the stage box, and the other connected to our front of house console's AES-50A port. On the Setup tab, we will set our front of house console synchronization setting to recognize AES-50A as its sync point. We will then move over to the Routing tab and select AES-50A on the channel banks 1 through 32. Once that is set, the stage box now corresponds to the input channels on our front of house console. Channels 1 through 32 on the stage box are now channels 1 through 32 on our front of house console. Each channel on our front of house console will be routed to the left, right, or main stereo bus using the main bus section on the console's surface. On most consoles, the input channels will be routed to the left, right by default. It is good practice to confirm this routing when setting up your console though, so you know each step of your signal flow process from start to finish. On the Midas M32, the default outputs to the PA system are set as output 15 for the left and output 16 for the right. Much like the channel routing, the master fader is set to feed those outputs by default, so once we push the fader up on our channels, it will feed the master fader, and the master fader will feed outputs 15 and 16. Our last step at front of house is to make sure our outputs are connected to the PA system. As discussed, the default outputs are 15 and 16. We will confirm that output 15 feeds the left side of our PA, and output 16 feeds the right side of our PA. Once those are properly connected, we will be able to pass signals from our subsnake on the stage all the way to the PA system. Setting up Monitor World can be much more in-depth than front of house because we have individual mixes for every performer on stage. If our band has 5 people on the stage, the engineer will have 5 separate mixes to build. This could take time, as each person could require a different blend of instruments in order to give the best performance. The monitor position is a crucial point in our production for performance integrity, so let's make sure we fully understand the entire setup. Since we have already plugged our subsnake into our stage box and established our stage box as the centerpiece for interfacing with the instruments on stage, we will begin with the AES-50B port on the back of the stage box. We will run the second Cat6 cable from the AES-50B port on the stage box to the AES-50A port on the monitor console. Since each console has 2 AES-50 ports, A and B, we can connect to either port and set the console to recognize that port as our source of incoming signal and inputs. We will now open the Setup tab and select Internal for our synchronization setting. This will set the monitor console as the leader and give it control over the output channels on the stage box. We will now move over to the Routing tab and select AES-50A as our input source on the channel banks 1 through 32. Once we have set the console to recognize the AES-50A port as our source, it will allocate each channel on our stage box to the corresponding channel on the console in the exact same way as the front of house console has. The main difference being that our monitor console has control over the XLR outputs on our stage box. Each channel will, of course, default to the left, right, or main stereo bus, but this will not be necessary as we will not be using the left, right, or main stereo bus. We will be using the XLR outputs on our stage box instead. In the monitor position, we will use our bus sends to feed our monitoring devices such as wedges or IEM mixes. Each device will be connected to one of the 16 outputs, and each output will use a bus send to receive signal. In this scenario, we are using 2 stage monitors or wedges and 1 stereo IEM. The first wedge will be connected to output 1 and the second to output 2 on the stage box. The IEMs will be connected to outputs 3 and 4 since they are stereo. We will link bus 3 and 4 outputs together. Any signal sent with bus 1 will go to our first wedge, and any signal sent with bus 2 will go to our second wedge. Since buses 3 and 4 are linked into a stereo pair, bus 3 will be the send amount and bus 4 will dictate the panning of that signal. Anything we send with bus 3 will be sent to both outputs 3 and 4 because the outputs are stereo linked.
Give me a refill, baby, driving me out of my lane. Emotions are restless, I'm crashing into love, I can pump the brake on. Baby, drive